Why should prophecy be taken seriously? I want to talk about two main points, and that is the responsibility of the prophet and the responsibility of the one receiving a prophecy. Now, as far as the responsibility of the prophet goes, I want to bring out four main points, the first three actually coming from the book of Jeremiah chapter 23. And in verse 22, he writes, "But if they had stood in my counsel, they would have proclaimed my words to my people and would have turned them from their evil ways." So, number one, the responsibility of a prophet is to be one who seeks God and stands in the counsel of God. Going on now to verse 23 and 26, Jeremiah writes, "Do not listen to what the prophets are prophesying to you. They fill you with false hopes. They speak visions from their own minds, not from the mouth of the Lord. How long will this continue in the hearts of these lying prophets who prophesy the delusions of their own minds?" So, a prophet needs to be careful, not only standing in the counsel of the Lord, but making sure that the word they are receiving is coming from the Lord and is not something that they are conjuring up in their own mind. Now, number three, in verse 30, Jeremiah writes, "I am against the prophets who steal from one another words supposedly from me." So this is what I would call a bandwagon prophet, one who's just repeating words that they heard from other people. Now, the fourth point I want to make is the idea of a prophetic burden. Now, when God speaks something to his prophets, it's not usually something that he is just putting in their mind that they are just going to repeat, but it's usually something that he expects to work inside of them. It's usually something that starts a process that can often be difficult. Just look at people like Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, or New Testament examples like Paul and John. God usually uses them, he works something inside of them that they can then share with other people. The number two area I want to talk about is the responsibility of the one receiving prophecy. Now, a lot of people today take prophecy very lightly, but when you read the Bible, it's actually a pretty serious thing. Now, I want to say that when you look at biblical examples, like I said, a prophecy usually works in somebody. Now, I already mentioned how a prophetic word will often work inside of the prophet, but when you look at the Bible, a lot of times prophecies will actually work inside of the person receiving them as well. You know, speaking of Joseph, the psalmist writes in Psalms 105, verse 19, "Until the time that his word came to pass, the word of the Lord tested him." We talked about in other videos how prophecy is actually meant to equip us. So we need to know that when we receive a prophetic word, it can actually do something inside of us that's changing us, that is preparing us for something. And in Hebrews 6:12, the author encourages us to imitate those who through faith and patience inherit the promise. So prophecy is meant to work in us, to edify us. It changes us, it changes our mindsets, it changes our hearts. So people can also be prepared to go through a difficult situation by a prophetic word. But we need to know that in addition to encouraging us and exhorting us, it is meant to edify and equip us. Now, in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 14 and 15, Paul writes, "Do not neglect the gift that is in you, which was given to you by prophecy, with the laying on of hands of the eldership. Meditate on these things, give yourself entirely to them, that your progress may be evident to all." So prophecy is not necessarily a casual pick-me-up, though it can be that on a smaller level. But Timothy received spiritual gifts by prophecy and was instructed to meditate on them and give himself entirely to them. So in summary, on the seriousness of prophecy and prophetic ministry, I talked about two main things, which is the responsibility of the prophet and the responsibility of the one receiving prophecy. The responsibility of the prophet is to stand in the counsel of God, make sure that they're hearing from God and not prophesying from their own mind or their own desires. Make sure you're not just stealing other people's words because they said something that you liked. And you also need to know that prophetic ministry often involves a burden that God is going to place inside of you. And as far as the one receiving a prophecy goes, we need to know that prophecy not only encourages, but is also meant to equip us and will often work something in us that can even take time and even be uncomfortable for us. Now, if this video ministered to you, I'd encourage you to like it, share it, and check out the Call from the Mountain YouTube channel because we actually have a lot of other great content on there as well.